Legacy. It's a powerful thing. When your grandfather and father both go down the same path, it's going to be quite easy to go down the same path, especially when it's a bad one. So what happens when an 8-year-old is handed the reins of king? Disaster? Destruction? Annihilation? There he was, in his room, doing what 8-year-olds did in the ancient world. News spread to him quickly. Chaos was ensuing in the palace because his father, the king, was just assassinated by his servants. As the news got outside the palace walls, an uprising began of common people who wanted to avenge their fallen king. So many things are going on all around him. His father is dead, and that's when he hears the footsteps. As he hears the group of people outside his door grow larger, his stomach begins to twist. He's afraid, nervous, and frozen. But as he listens intently to the people, he doesn't hear them jeering with anger. He hears something different. And then his door opens. It's the common people who were there to avenge his father. They tell him that he is being made the new king. He hardly understands how this process is possible. After all, he's an 8-year-old kid. What does being king even mean? Apparently, Josiah figured out what being king looks like as a kid, because 8 years into his time as king, not only was he still alive, but he also, surprisingly, began seeking God. So for the first 16 years of his life, he followed in his father and grandfather's footsteps of neglecting God and worshiping idols. But things were changing. He was beginning to go down a different path. And as the king, he had the position to greatly influence his people. 4 years go by from the moment he began seeking God, and the king's faith begins to echo throughout the land with Asherah poles, carved images, and cast images being taken down, shattered, and crushed. He chopped down the idolatrous altars and shrines in cities all across the land and returned to Jerusalem. The wrongdoing of his father and grandfather was being dealt with by Josiah. He wanted to seek God and honor God. 6 years from there go by, and Josiah sends a few people to repair the temple of the Lord. 18 years into his reign as king, now 26 years old, King Josiah is blessed with amazing news. Hilkiah, the high priest, found the book of the law in the temple. The court secretary was given the book, and he read it to Josiah. When he heard what the book of the law said, Josiah was furious because his people had been disobedient and dishonored their God. Reform after reform, Josiah was on a mission to rid his people of idolatry. He was a man pursuing the Lord with all his heart. He deeply desired to worship and honor God. When the time had come to observe the Passover, Josiah ordered the people to observe it. This was significant because Scripture tells us no Passover had been observed like it in Israel since the days of the prophet Samuel. None of the kings of Israel ever observed a Passover like the one that Josiah observed with the priests, the Levites, all Judah, the Israelites who were present in Judah, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. 2 Chronicles 35:18. Josiah not only shifted the legacy he was given, but he completely reformed the nation he led. No other king had done what he did. Before him, there was no king like him who turned to the Lord with all his heart and with all his soul and with all his strength, according to all the law of Moses. And no one like him arose after. 2 Kings 23:25. Josiah had the odds stacked against him. Not only was he a kid when he became king, but he had a father and grandfather who abandoned God. So what happened in Josiah's life that made him begin to seek God? We don't know. Maybe it was a person who led him to God. Maybe God intervened in his life. We don't know. But what we do know is that when he began to seek God, he eventually found him. Josiah didn't let his 16 years of living away from God get in the way of his newfound pursuit of God. There's a nugget there for you and me. If you have ever walked the opposite way that God would want you to walk, you can know that you can turn back and He will be there. And not only that, but when you begin to seek God, you can expect to be transformed. You can expect to have your actions changed. You can expect your affections to be changed. The desires of your heart will be transformed into the desires of God's heart. No matter where you've been or what you've done, your mess isn't too big for the King of Kings.